And the Immigration Reform Law Institute put out a list of the 10 worst sanctuary mayors in this country. Ron Nirenberg, Reed Gashora, Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin, Karen Bass, Mayor Muriel Bowser, Kelly Gertz, Michael Johnston, Eric Adams. So we've come to the number one worst sanctuary mayor in America right now. And if you haven't figured out who it is yet, based on our other nominees, it's Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago. And I couldn't think of a better person to have on the show today to talk about this than Pastor David Lowery, coming to us from Chicago, friend of the show and making his return visit. Thank you, Pastor Lowery. How you doing?
I'm good. First, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for making it possible for me to be here, man. And I love this show, man. You guys putting it on the map because you're telling the truth, man, and we just got to keep it going. I'm ready.
Amen. Now, in my opinion, Pastor Lowery, you know more about what's going on in Chicago than any 10 corporate media talking heads and then some. So tell us again, why is Brandon Johnson worthy of being called the worst sanctuary mayor in America?
Well, first of all, he's a compulsive liar. He was using the race card to be able to get into office because after Lori Lightfoot, the people were so upset with her that they thought that Brandon would be compassionate to the needs of the people of the city. And once that he got into office, he diverted all his power. He split it up with the school union. He never did anything but carry out the orders of Lori Lightfoot, which was to take $381 million of the taxpayers' money that was sent to Chicago by former President Donald Trump to assist the Chicago area, the West Side and South Side, in the Black community, to create economics, to be able to help with the fentanyl problem. I mean, President Trump also created the First Step program. These type of programs that he created, and when he put the money into Chicago, the Chicago people never knew about it because the Democrats like Lori Lightfoot kept the money, and when they reappropriated the money, they put it into an emergency fund, in which that's when we got rid of her. I'm working with a lot of brothers and sisters from the streets, the real grassroots people here in Chicago, some pastors who have come off the plantation in the mind of the Democratic Party. And so, we got together and we made a decision that we wanted to make sure that we got Lori Lightfoot out. She did not get a black ward at all. But I think the people of Chicago were somewhat in a state of shock with her. And when they saw Brandon Johnson, they thought Brandon, because he was supposedly from the West Side of Chicago, which he wasn't. He was from Elgin. He related to the people by pointing the race finger. And this is why I call him the no-brain Johnson. But he was smart enough to trick the people. And when he got, he used the race card against Paul Vallis and had black people thinking, and the technique that the Democrats using across the country gotten to be a basic plan. It's to demonize the other candidate if he's white or some other color, to make black people think that this is a racial thing, that this whole thing is because, you got Brandon Johnson, a black man, going against Paul Vallis, a white man who had all the experience, who had been in education before, who would have been a better mayor than Brandon Johnson. But black people got emotional. They chose Brandon Johnson, and now he's worse than Lori Sugarfoot Lightfoot. Our city is under siege. It has become a woke city. And as a pastor, I don't do woke. This is a war between good and evil. I've never seen so much evil stuff that has been put into the black community and communities across this country. This evil is from the White House. And, Joe Biden, I believe they've opened the gates of hell, him and Barack Obama, They've done some very, very evil spiritual stuff here across the country, especially here in Chicago.
Pastor, let me ask you a question. So, the people that are in favor of open borders seem to be telling the black community that they have more in common with illegal aliens who have just arrived here than they do with their fellow similarly situated Americans. So, can you talk about that? What are they hoping to accomplish? Is it true? And why do they persist in this narrative?
Well, first of all, the American people and patriots have to realize one thing for sure, that we did not have this border problem under the leadership of the previous president, Trump. Once the crime bill was instituted, the drugs came in, the guns came in, the single family household, and the black community was totally almost destroyed. And the point that I'm making is this: because of the systematic racism and the mindset of black people, and always waiting for somebody to free us, always waiting for a Dr. King, we have gone down the annals of society and we have nothing. And so this is the appropriate time that these entities got together and said, yeah, black people, you might be the first largest minority, but you're no longer going to be that way because we can't trust you anymore because they're waking up. Black people start waking up, okay? And so now this was the perfect time to open the borders and invade this country, and the taxpayers paid for the invasion. To invade this country, they needed a stopping ground, and they put them in the black community. Now, the Hispanic community has been sort of silent about all of this, and there's been a few protests. But what I've seen now, they have come in with the Hispanic community, which is going to make them the largest minority in America, and they needed room, so that's why they infested the black community. They overran our communities. They brought extra crime. They're burning up the resources black people are supposed to get. I mean, all of these things, like President Trump said, black jobs that black people could get to take care of their families. Now these jobs are being given to illegals, money and everything. So this was an opportune time. The black community is at its lowest of all time. And what they want to do is they force them into the community. And once that they're there, they're going to give them housing and all of that. And pretty much the black community is not going to have a say. So they're just going to have to accept them in the community and try to blend with them and work with them. And there will be another black stronghold community in America if this is going to occur.
We've seen a lot of these videos, Pastor Lowery, of the town hall meetings in Chicago, where a lot of these residents are justifiably furious at Brandon Johnson for these policies he's enacting now. Did Brandon Johnson try to enact some kind of reparations program? It sounded like it was a very cynical ploy to quell the criticism of him. Is that going anywhere? And what do you hear from people on the ground? Are they more angry at Johnson than they were a while ago, or
what's... Well, this is one of the tricks that I've seen from the left, the Democratic Party, is when all else fails, tell black folks that you're going to give them some money, okay? Lyndon Johnson said it in 1968. We're going to give them some welfare and they'll be voting for the Democrats for 200 years. Well, we done wasted 60 already. He was right. And so Brandon Johnson only used the tactic because crime is up. We had a couple of weeks ago, we had 100 people shot, 20 dead. The drug problem is still running rampant. We got illegals selling dope, killing people, and getting out of jail the next day. So, I mean, the whole city is an inferno right now. There's nothing being done, but the politicians are stealing the taxpayers' money by using the illegals, because most of the money is going to administrative costs, and the migrants are probably going to get maybe 2 cents on a dollar, and the money's going to the politicians. So this was a last ditch effort, and I know It probably came from Barack Obama, who said black people will never get reparations. Just tell them you're going to give them reparations. We'll bring them, just reel them back in. Just throw them the fish and get them back on the hook. And so out of desperation and out of disrespect to the black community, he came and says, well, black people, if you just wait, hold on to your horses, and I'll start a study. Not give reparations, but I'm going to start a study, which Sheila Jackson did down in Houston. I'm going to start a study to see if we can see who's going to get reparations. And that was a ploy used by the Democratic Party to try to energize black people to think, man, Johnson going to get us, Mr. Johnson going to get us reparations. That's not working. And the black people saw through that, and it made it worse for him. So he's a liar, a thief, and some other things I would like to call him, but I won't. But, he has no intentions on giving reparations. This was a way to get black people to let their guards down. Brandon, it didn't work, and we still going to get you out of office.
So you mentioned the number of shootings, and before all the migrants got here, Chicago had a crime problem and a shooting problem. But it seems to have gotten demonstrably worse since the borders were kicked open. But every time we publish anything on this, the mainstream corporate media and all of the people who supposedly have studied this push back and tell us that the migrants are not causing increased crime levels. So your feet on the ground in Chicago, Pastor Lowery, tell us, is it increasing the crime rate or not?
Let me say this to the American people and patriots across this country. Do not believe the media. The mainstream media is part of the woke agenda. They're not going to let the American people know the truth no matter what. They're going to hide it, and they're going to do what they can. As a pastor, I work with all the street organizations. I want to send a shout out to David Boxdale, the third, Reverend Kelly, Larry Hoover and them, Minister Rico and them on the west side. All the street organizations, GDs, BDs, Vice Lords, the Stone, Minister Jeff Ford, all of these guys have organizations. And these organizations are not what the American people think. These are black men and women who belong to a set, just like the police department. They have families. They take care of their kids. They're doing a lot of things in the community that's positive. We had got to a place here in Chicago where we are starting to get the young people out of the shooting craze. That's what I call it. You know what I'm saying? And we were getting to the shooters and making sure that, and this is done by the same street organizations that people want to call gangbangers. They're raising families in these communities, and they don't want their children killed. And so they're getting to the shooters so we can stop the shooters and address their needs, right? And every city in America became a border town. The migrants came into the black community. They brought drugs, they brought guns, they brought an attitude that we don't have to go to jail. We can kill anybody, we can kill police and not go to jail. And that's the problem, that crime went up. So don't believe the media. The crime is going up. They're trying to cover up the crimes. Migrants are shooting people. They're robbing people. They're bringing drugs. They're selling drugs in front of the police face. I was at one of the facilities with Ben Berquam and Terry Newsom, and the migrants was right in front of us selling dope, and the police was there. And our car was parked next to the police, and the police told us that we had to get out of there because we was parked illegally, and they was handing off dope in front of the police. And so these illegals who are in our country today, they know that if they kill somebody, talk about the police officers in New York that got shot up by the migrants and they was out of jail the next day. So their attitude is, we don't care if we kill them, we're gonna get out of jail anyway. So it's making it tough for the street organizations who are trying to do positive things to try to curtail some of the crime that they're bringing to our community. But it is at a place where if it wasn't for the grace of God and myself and some of the other brothers who want to do the right thing, it would be a war. it would be a terrible war in Chicago because the migrants are doing what they want and they're disrespecting our communities. The politicians are allowing it, and the grassroots people are getting fed up. And so we're sitting on a powder keg, and so that's what it is in the Black community. And they are causing all sorts of havoc, and the media is not portraying it to the American people.
There was a story out of New York City recently that there was some support on the city council there to roll back some of the sanctuary policies in that city, and it got defeated. The majority won in that case, so they didn't do it. But is there any talk even in Chicago about bringing back some of these sanctuary policies that are causing so much trouble?
The aldermen in these major cities, they just said to hell with the citizens, and they're all getting paid. All of them are getting millions of dollars to sell the citizens out and take taxpayer money. And that's why when you talk about sanctuary city, which we have here in Chicago, that could be removed by the sheriff. You know that, right? The sheriff in Chicago, Tom Dart right now could call in ICE and deem that Chicago is no longer sanctuary city, and every illegal will be running for the border in the next 24 hours. That's the sheriff. He has sworn to uphold the people of the Constitution. That's his oath is to the Constitution. So he has the power to do it. No, the city council shot it down, but we're working on some things to be able to get Chicago away from under the sanctuary city, whether it's the petition or not. There's some good things that are going to go on the next election that's going to make a huge difference in our city, and we're just looking forward to that in the future.
Well, Pastor Lowery, tell us what else you're doing out there, because I know from that banner behind you, and a lot of people know you host a tremendous podcast out there. But tell us about that, and tell us what else you've got going on and how people can find out more about what you're doing.
Folks, you can find me at LetTheTruthBeToldRadio.com. That's the Exceptional Conservative Network, TV.com. My show is Let the Truth Be Told. It airs 6 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday there. We are also on Rumble.com, David Lowe 1057. You can find us on X at David Lowery Jr. 1. That's our first account. We have another account at David Lowery Jr. And that's it. And we're on LinkedIn. And folks, go subscribe at the Rumble channel. You can find us on Facebook and some of the other social media. We're working to expand the show now. We're getting a lot of people have gotten involved with us. Our numbers have went up. Y'all doing the right thing, keeping the American people informed, man. It's a blessing to know you guys. God bless you.
All right, Brian. So that was commentary from Pastor David Lowery, who has been a friend of the podcast, who is on the ground and active in Chicago in the movement to protect Chicago communities from the sanctuary movement and the negative effects that are happening. And I think it was interesting to hear him. And the only thing I'm sorry about is that he held back and didn't really tell us how he felt.
He's such a wallflower. I wish he would just open up and tell us what he really thinks.
It's always refreshing to talk with Pastor Lowery. He's very grounded in the community. He knows what people are thinking, and he's not giving you the television news version. He's giving you the reality of what's going on in Chicago among regular people who are dealing with these issues.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the Immigration Reform Law Institute, go to irli.org. If you found this information useful and you'd like to support the show, go to irli.org/podcast. You can also hear this show on Apple Podcasts, Rumble, and Spotify. And don't forget to check us out on all the major social media platforms. Thanks again.